Hello and welcome to a new season of our South Texas Pride Q&As. I'm Ivan Herrera, and today I'm joined by Government Affairs Director for Equality Texas, Rachel Hill. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So the last time that we spoke, we discussed Senate Bill 3, which would have barred trans children from playing in sports that align with their gender identity in school. Now, this bill was similar to House Bill 25, which was recently enacted last month by the Texas legislature and just went into effect this year. Can you first tell me what are some of the initial impacts that families of trans youth may be experiencing right now?
Yeah, so HB 25 is a similar transgender sports ban. So it does ban any trans youth from participating in K through 12 sports according to their gender identity and their true and authentic selves. So immediately what it does is that it puts this target on the backs of trans youth, marking them as different or dangerous. And particularly in the school climate we see today, where they're banning LGBTQ themed books or having these really contentious school board meetings, this just contributes to that anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ environment that we see in the schools. So because the bill was so vague in its wording of how it was to be enforced, there is no enforcement language. It means that schools don't know how to enforce it yet. There's no widespread guidance. The bill directs the UIL to create that guidance, and so far they have not done that yet. So really right now it's every school for themselves. And until they get that guidance, schools shouldn't be enforcing it.
So have you heard of families that maybe have left the state or are working to find alternatives to help their children play sports?
I think right now, mostly what we're seeing is just a lot of fear, right? We did have a lot of families leave during this marathon 10-month anti-LGBTQ session. And a lot of families did choose to leave the state, right? Because it was not just the regular session, but all of these special sessions and this relentless attack. Right now, most of the families that are in Texas and have chosen to remain or maybe can't leave because they don't have the resources, they're just trying to make sense of all of this. As I mentioned, the bill is really vague, so it's hard to see how it's actually going to impact kids day to day. Kids aren't required to disclose their transgender status to their school, right? That's protected information by federal law. And so it's hard to know how schools are going to require that information to begin with. The biggest impact we're really seeing is just a lot of uncertainty and fear, and a lot of parents calling us, asking what is going to happen to my kid. And after a whole year of uncertainty, it really, really wears on you.
So I know that this new bill also has an exception about allowing girls to participate in certain sports with boys. What does that exception mean in terms of conversations that Equality Texas has had around this part of the bill or law?
Yeah, and that's a really astute observation. So this was really telling when they wrote this law, right? Because a lot of the arguments that we were hearing were talking about physicality and really painting like cisgender women as these really fragile flowers, right? That couldn't withstand participating in sports with different physicalities. And what this exception shows is that none of that is true, right? The legislators themselves are acknowledging that all the time, cis girls and cis boys play together. Right? They scrimmage. If cis girls play football with cis boys, the physicality argument is a myth, right? And because they have this exception in there, it shows that they acknowledge that, right? If cis girls can play football, a notoriously dangerous and violent sport, then why can't trans women, right? And so it really just is more about dehumanizing and stigmatizing trans girls and separating them from their peers than it is about safety. Because, kids of different physicalities play together all the time, no matter what their genders are.
So Texas is the 10th state to enact a law like this. Is Equality Texas partnering with organizations outside the state to deter more bills like this and others that target the LGBTQ community?
Absolutely. So we are part of what's called the Equality Federation, and it's kind of an association of all of the different statewide orgs. So like Equality Texas, we work with Equality Florida, Equality North Carolina, and all of the other state equality groups to share information, share tactics, lessons learned, and Texas is every other year for our legislative sessions, but a lot of these states are currently in their legislative session and are fighting these same bills. Even if they had one passed, they see bills that are making it worse, right, or expanding it. There is litigation in a few states. In the few states that we've seen it, it's been going well. There have been injunctions for particular students, but we also know it takes a really long time for cases to work their way through the court. So the more we can stop these bills before they become law, the better.
So what long-term effect do you think a law like this will have on our trans youth here in Texas?
The long-term effects are really this increased anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ culture that we're seeing. So Equality Texas, we're not a direct service organization, but we are often the first place people turn to if they experience discrimination in their schools. And we used to get notifications or requests for help maybe once every month or so. And now we're getting it every week and sometimes every single day. And so we are not the only ones who have seen this increase in requests for help and experiences of discrimination. Our statewide partners have seen that too. The Transgender Education Network of Texas, Lambda Legal, ACLU, we're all experiencing this same increase in experiences of discrimination, particularly in schools. I think that's how we know that it's directly related. We've even seen in some of these school board fights, opponents of equality name like kids specifically, trans kids in their communities and in their schools, and cite them as dangerous to the other students. So really the culture that this bill creates is spreading.
What is Equality Texas doing to combat more anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ plus bills from being enacted further down the line here in Texas?
So the biggest thing that we're doing is we are, as Equality Texas, launching a multi-year investment into elections because we do not ever want to have another legislative session like the 2021 with the 76 anti-LGBTQ bills filed. We were able to kill all of them except for HB 25. But the first thing to do is to elect pro-equality legislators who are not going to file those bills in the first place and are going to make sure that we can stop them in their tracks before they become law. We're also monitoring the situation on the ground, making sure that those who do request help can get that help, and we can connect them to the organizations that can empower them, whether it's showing up in strength and numbers in their communities or getting the legal help they need. We just want to make sure that everybody has that support.
So what can people do to help in this effort to fight any anti-LGBTQ related bills, and where can they reach Equality Texas?
Yeah, so you can reach Equality Texas at our website, www.equalitytexas.org, or on any of our social media handles. We're just Equality Texas on all of those handles. And really, there are places to sign up to volunteer. We are hosting that Turnout for Texas campaign to make a real effort in elections. And so there's opportunities to volunteer and donate through that program. And we are really growing our strength in the locality. So if you want to volunteer, you want to help support some of these students in your local communities and your schools, go ahead and get on our mailing list, and we will let you know when things are happening in your community.
Rachel Hill from Equality Texas, thank you so much for joining me on this South Texas Pride Q&A. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.